Good morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today for our webinar. I have with me a prestigious guest, Kirti Gavri, who's head of corporate development at Wizeline. And I have with me Dharmendra Singh, who's the founder and CEO of MergerWare. So thank you for joining in today. And we are going to be talking about one of the most interesting topics within M&A. We're going to be broadly covering from the M&A strategy to, the buyer, seller, and the entire success of the deal. So all in all, we're going to be deep diving in the entire M&A process. Thank you. All right, before we deep dive, I just want to introduce myself. I am Arshya. I work with the sales and strategy team of MergerWare. And today I'm going to be your moderator for the webinar today.
Thank you, Arshya. Thank you for having us.
All right, so with much ado, let's get started on the main issues that we're going to be talking about, the main strategy in essential when a company ventures into an M&A space. So the first question for our listeners or anyone who's tuning in, you want to think about who owns the M&A strategy essentially. Is it like the corporate development team or the chief strategy officer? So I'd love to know your thoughts, Kirti, on this.
Sure. Now, you started with a very important question, and I think as an organization, that's where everyone should start. I would say, from a functional organization standpoint, it really depends. So you'd see some organizations have a separate corporate strategy team. Some have like corporate strategy and development as like one team. But what is important is to note is like corporate strategy is the overarching framework. M&A is a tool to achieve the desired set of objectives, right? But the corporate strategy kind of guides the M&A strategy. So the execution of M&A strategy, if the organization has a corporate development function, is owned by corporate development. But the strategy is guided by the business leaders and the overall, the mandates that then gets dived into, the execution mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I can add. Yeah. So I can add some points. So I think already Kirti have said that. So what I have seen is, M&A strategy team, corporate development team, they both work together. So if you go to small firms, maybe there is no M&A team. There is a CFO who is doing everything. If you go to mid-size and large firm, you might get a very complex organization where corporate strategy team is working with the CEO and putting the strategy in place, and the M&A team is doing execution. So whatever strategy you plan, M&A is one component of it, and then both teams work together to define, find the target. And of course, business. So it is not one team. Basically, if corporate strategy go and make a strategy, M&A strategy, there is no M&A team, that will not work. Once M&A team is there, then we need a business people, who is going to own the new teams. And that's why, just to answer your question is corporate strategy team is one who will be working along with business team, along with M&A team, and together. So in most of the complex organization where I have seen and I work, in my experience, I have seen that there is a corporate strategy team who is working on 5-year, 3-year plan, and then M&A team is part of that plan, and they work together along with business to make sure that they grow together, they drive M&A plans, execution, finding the target, and so on. So.
Absolutely.
In nutshell, I can say you that different organizations have different way of, or the way teams are organized.
Rightly said. So
no, I was saying absolutely that's how it is, and the critical aspect is that all the strategic mindset, in directionally working together, that's the core.
Yes, and rightly both mentioned by both, different levers play a very different role in the entire process. And okay, so if I have to, brightly, make it more, if I have to look at what are the key drivers, essentially pillars that you at the top of your mind that comes around, when you plan an M&A strategy from a macroscopic level. So, what do you think one should be keeping in mind before, you hit a failure or some sort of a hiccup in the entire process?
Yeah, so, I would say that what happens as in any strategy, what is important is because M&A is one component, it is very important to identify the gaps even at a corporate strategy level, right? So what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And then how do you want to fill those gaps, right? So having that programmatic approach of that identification and the assessment process. And to be honest, what is happening, at least the past few years, the technology and the technology cycle and the economic cycle is changing so fast that, there has to be a continuous process of the self-assessment and the market assessment. And then you keep identifying, okay, this is what I'm going to build, this is what I have, but this is where M&A comes in. So having that buy-in initially at a corporate level, at the business level, and then from a market standpoint, validating that these are the areas that we would focus on. And then keep, as we go along the process, keep testing that hypothesis. That goes a long way. That's very important, because otherwise, if you're just opportunistic and working on the targets as, whatever comes in, then, it might not even align to the strategy by the time you're gone through the whole process. That's one. The second aspect is just being cognizant of what are the resources available in the organization. And that could very well vary from a large complex organization to a smaller organization, right? Because M&A is not just like getting the deal done, it's also integrating the deal within the organization. And that defines success to a very large extent. And in that, how it translates into the first step of strategy is understanding that can you chew the deals or the targets, like defining a screening criteria. It could be in terms of what's the sweet spot for your revenue. Do you want it to be growth accretive? Or do you want to focus on margins? Kind of deciding the guardrails of where M&A would play in, that's the second aspect of it. Dharmendra, would love to hear your thoughts.
So I think, if you talk about key drivers to define and plan a company M&A strategy, we can keep talking for a day. Still, it will not be complete, because first thing we have to define why we want to do M&A, right? Once company decide that today we are X and we wanted to become Y, and M&A is a key driver, then putting things together, the team, the process, because you go to the companies, you don't have basic M&A process. They don't have any playbook. And if we start doing M&A deal, you are going to be in big mess, because you are not going to integrate. There is no integration team defined. There is no plan. So when we define M&A strategy, for me, as soon as I think that company is going to do M&A, first thing, are we M&A ready? Are we have process set? Are we have playbook? Do we have qualified people to do the integration? Because most of the company, they think that M&A integration is like, it's a project management, right? And you bring the person who don't understand the business, and you bring a project manager, he cannot manage integrating, and I've seen so many deals where, the guy who has integration head, he don't have the business background. And for him, it is very tough to really do, take the role and play as integration manager. He's not going to do it. So I think M&A strategy starts from very basic, asking questions, why we want to acquire, when we want to acquire, whether we have skills to acquire, whether we have people to acquire. If we don't, then first bring everything together, be ready, and then go for acquisitions, right? And I think, so if you talk about key drivers, in the top view, I can say people, process, technologies, business, all things we have to combine and be ready for any acquisition you are doing, right? That's what corporate development team and, corporate strategy team, they work on 3 years, 5 years plan. And why they do is because their job is to make sure that whenever we are, deciding to go for any M&A deal, we are ready. It's not like you have started and then you realize that we don't have team, right? So these are the key points. And as I said, there are many, and I think Kirti gave basic foundation. If you look at, she gave lots of inputs. But my key takeaway for this question is, primarily, we have to be ready. We have to be prepared. We should know why we are doing M&A. If you have all these answers, you can go for M&A. If you don't have this answer, wait and be ready instead of just jumping the gun and going and doing acquiring any company.
Absolutely. And rightly said, so that the fact, getting that entire homework done before you step out into the space of, acquiring and getting that entire framework in place is very necessary. Kirti, one of the points that you mentioned was to find, the sweet spot with the company that you're in conversation with. How are their revenue set up? What is their vision and mission, to get acquired? Or do you want to dilute the business? So from a success and a failure standpoint, just want to understand, do you think sometimes when you are in those conversations with the prospects, there is sometimes pushback or, some sort of, because they built a legacy, right? There are companies that are building legacy and they might feel apprehensions towards getting diluted or being acquired. So do you think that affects the strategy all in all?
Very good question. I'd say it's like both parts. It's like a partnership, right? M&A is not just the acquirer coming in and taking a pick. I want this company, and then let's just acquire, and the deal happens, right? And even if it's a sell-side process where the seller has already gone through the acceptance of that they are ready to sell and they are looking for parties, or if we are like, as an acquirer, you go proactively identify the prospect and reach out, whether you go that route, like outbound or inbound, it is at the end of the day partnership. Because what you're talking about is people here. Like, it's not just like an economic transaction that you pay, there's a price, and then, you get all the value. So because it is a partnership, it is very critical that both parties see it that way and like pursue it as a win-win. And it's a process, as in any organic transaction, that the management gets to know each other, like the values match, why we are doing, we understand like what are we going to get from this, and then what are they expecting to get from this, right? So it's a two-way street in that regard, but absolutely, like if you treat it just like a transaction, it seldom succeeds, right? Because for it to even drive value in the new organization, you need people to come on board, right? You need their secret sauce, whatever they have been doing thus far, to work, right? That's the rationale. You could look at that as a financial or economic value, but the transfer of that economic value actually happens when that system works. So in that regard, I think, we got to look at that, and it's very important that there is that mindset, the partnership mindset, and both parties work together to, like, they got to want it to be done equally, or if not aggressively more than how, you want, like as a buyer, one wants to get it done.
Right. And too, when you rightly mentioned that, it is a partnership agreement, right? It has to be value on both sides. So that brings me to my another question of, while the team is planning and, we have a lot of viewers tuned in and would want to know, do you think is the ideal or necessary amount of time and effort one should be putting in? What is like the success criteria, if to put it in one word, when you venture out?
It's an iterative process. I think about this question is, is there like a magic pill? Like I can build my strategy? No. And it brings me back to, if we take a step back to our first question and to what Dharmendra had rightly pointed out in a very elaborative way. M&A strategy, so much as like corporate strategy, is an iterative process. And gone are the days where you would put in like 3 to 5 year strategy and then just sit back and wait for the execution, right? It is input, output in real time. It's very agile, and that's how it works. So there, on one hand, the way to think about it is, there is a corporate strategy. So we know like broadly what's the goal that or the vision and mission that we are out there to achieve, right? And then you break it down at like, how are we going to achieve it, right? And then what are the existing gaps? Then you further break it down to what are the components and what growth is going to come from organic measures and what is it going to come from the M&A efforts. And that's where once you have that outline of the gaps, then you're continuously feeding them and like validating them from the business leaders, from your customers, from your people, right? What are they seeing in the market? And then aligning it to your corporate strategy. So it's an iterative process, right? And as a corporate development team, while you are looking at that M&A strategy, that's one big part of the job, like, right? To stay relevant, like what is in the market? How are you feeding it back in your M&A strategy? And how are you implementing it and taking it as you're looking for the targets? As you go through the due diligence, are you asking the right questions, right? And then as you're negotiating, do you see if there is going to, like, what you're buying would still be relevant when it comes time in your like business case, like for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period? So all those things tie back to, it's not a one-time exercise for like 3 or 4. It's an iterative process. And that's how, you know, that to me would have a higher likelihood of success than the other model.
Yeah. So I think, you know, as you rightly said, it's a very iterative process. And that's why you might have seen that many of the deal, when you go up to, you know, DD phase, it will be, you know, we go and call off the deal. We say, okay, we are not going further. And then again, you look at your strategy, then you refine again, and then you know, make other decisions, right? Many times I have seen that some of the deals we started working on acquiring the company, and then we thought, okay, this is not the right time. Maybe we have to look at, you know, other way of looking at. So maybe, you know, instead of acquiring the company, we choose them as a partner. We started working with them for a couple of years, and then we looked at our strategy and we acquired after some time. So there is no definite rule. I think, you know, we make a strategy, in between we work and we try to see what is working well, what is not working, aligning our mission, because this is very complex. Bigger the organization, complexity is higher. So what happens is, you know, you go and, you know, talk to your corporate strategy team. They have made, you know, M&A as a lever for you to go ahead and buy a company. Now M&A team, and they start working and they realize, okay, this is not the right time, or maybe the market condition. There are a number of things. There is not one or two lines. There are a number of things can happen in between. So it is always a process where we go, put your plan, see what you can do now, what we can do, you know, further. And if you find that this is not going to work, again, revisit your plan. So this, in any company, if you look at, you know, many people ask me, and now also I get so many requests from, you know, people connect me on LinkedIn that I wanted to work in corporate strategy team. And if you ask them that, you know, why you want to work, so they don't have, you know, a real answer. They don't know. So basically they think that we make a strategy and that's all, job is done. They don't know, it's a very complex process, right?
Exactly.
And the strategy team is always working.
Exactly. And it's a tough job. And you know, the other thing is the complexities, to your point, like there is not just one influencing factor, right? There are multiple factors. For example, I you know, it's one of my favorite examples that I like to give is we knew, like, from a strategic mandate standpoint, that this is one of the areas that we would want to invest in, right? So we get the target, we start working towards it. And then we realize, of course, like we did our homework and had an idea of where the valuations would come out to be in this space. But once we actually got into the process, it was a reality check. It's like you're coming back with the feedback and saying, oh, it's going to take like maybe 5 times the revenue or whatever that market is if we were to do this through an M&A route. So we had to revisit. And, you know, I remember a CEO asking the question, like, what if I just give, you know, my team $20 million, $30 million? Can they not build it? Like, we already have the go-to-market, we have this. Then what, like, let's think about building it organically versus going and spending this money, which again, it's like a risk, right? So things like that come into the process, and it is a continuous loop. And as part of corporate development and corporate strategy, it's a lot of background work, because then you're saying, okay, if not this, then what's my option B, C, D, right? So all of that is a lot of work, to your point, and a continuous iterative process.
Yeah. And that is the reason, corporate strategy team, they keep running so many strategic programs. Maybe they're not going to launch it, but they want to test before they take a decision, right?
Hypothesis testing. I remember when I started my career, that was, for at least like the first couple of years, that's all that I was doing, like hypothesis testing.
Right.
Yes, thank you. And, great thoughts on, the entire, I would say, execution of, once you step in the process, it's, as you said, it's completely iterative, and given the, scenario today, it takes a lot of hard work. And I would say hypothesis testing that you said that, it takes to get that success in place when you're looking out. For our listeners, also want to understand, since you both, have so much experience in the industry, and you must have come across various M&A transaction or structures in your, career stint. So would love to hear about it, or, if you could just elaborate more on that.
So let me just clarify the question. It's more about the process, the whole process, or, any experiences on the transaction?
The process, if you felt that, there are certain processes that could be completely, different from the ones that you are, following from a heritage perspective. As rightly said, it's iterative, but something that is an outlier that you've seen in your career stint from a structural perspective.
Yeah, I would like to say that corporate development, it's not just about M&A. M&A is one way of doing, like, getting the alternative investment and accelerated growth outside of the organic. So what I have been fortunate to experience is that there are creative ways to generate that value for the organization, right? Sometimes just like the straight out M&A might not work. And I think Dharmendra was alluding to that, one of the examples earlier, that how they started with M&A route, but then they partnered, and then they came to validate the value that both parties could bring to the table. So one of the examples that we had in our case was, we were trying to build a software business within the services umbrella of the business, right? And then we started the traditional route, and we figured that, maybe M&A might not work. Like, there aren't the businesses, like the set established businesses that fit the criteria that we are looking for and the value that we are looking for, like our screening criteria. So we came up with this creative construct of IP licensing, right? So what that meant was that, okay, we will take up the teams, we'll take up the R&D teams, and we will license the source code. And then, that was like one way to come around M&A, but then it'll be sort of like a phased M&A, if you will, right? So you test the market, you see if you're able to, see the same value, what are the challenges, and kind of get ready before you actually take that leap and just put in all your chips on the table. So in that, my experience, I would say, keep your creative brains working all the times, because, the funny way, or the analogy is, you when you go look out for, your partners to get married, you won't find them in like one go, and there's no perfect answer, right? So you kind of go through the process, get to know each other, and then you finally pull that trigger. And that's how it is. Like, it is a creative process. Sometimes a straight out M&A, traditional M&A route may not work, but don't lose hope. There are always like creative ways to come around and get the value.
That's an interesting point you mentioned, Kirti. And Dharmendra, any thoughts, something that you've observed in your career stint as well?
Sure. So there are many. So as you said, a structure, there are different M&A structure to put. Sometimes, as Kirti said, that we find a partner, work with partner, try to understand their business model better. And then we could also acquire in future. That is one. Other could be you acquire a company, let it run as in the separate entity, maybe reporting to somebody within the business. That is another model. Then another model could be 100% acquire and integrate it, within a business. There could be another complex one where we acquire a company and one business which wanted to integrate that company. They integrate for first year. After that, they break the company into 200 pieces, and then nobody knows where the people are, right? So there are multiple ways I have seen, and I have seen pro and cons for both. Sometimes the company which run as an independent company have very strong brand, they might have very good set of customers. They might do better than those company, maybe a smaller in size. We buy it, we give to business to run it, and they are not able to integrate it. So then, there is no success from the deal, right? Or you break the company into several pieces. So when I'm saying break the company into several pieces, it means maybe company lending organization come to my business, but then not everything aligned to my business. Then I start giving this team to different teams within the company, because complex organization, there could be several opportunities. Maybe somebody wanted to acquire one team to one customer. There are many scenarios. Now what happens? The real relevant of the company is, nobody knows also. And I know so many such acquisition where we work. We don't know where the people are, where the platform, which the time when we were acquiring, it was so critical to, acquire that we want to get this deal done. Once deal is done, nobody knows after 2-3 years where the people are, where the customers are, So the best is look what works for you, make your short-term plan, look at, how we can make it work. Because in M&A, nothing will work as is. You have to make it work. And that's why we have so many people, the strategy and all, right? The team, the M&A team, the integration team, the transaction team. It's very complex, right? And many times what happens, if you are head of integration, maybe you don't own any people. You are one man. You have people who are coming and working on part-time, but you have to get things done, right? You are responsible. Your KPI to get deal integrated fully. So depending on the requirement, there are different M&A structure company follow. It depends on what they are looking at short-term and long-term. What is the deal objective? Why they have done the acquisition? So this is what I can think, but there are many.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'd like to add specifically from my experience is also like reverse integration. What happens in that case is when you know that there is an identified gap and you go and buy that capability, right? Yeah. It is an acquisition in the structure of it. But, rather than like in a traditional way, what happens is you acquire a smaller company and that becomes a part of, the larger organization that you have, and somebody from the internal organization will own the P&L for that and run with it. However, in reverse integration, what happens is that once you've identified the gap, you know that you don't have enough scale to go out in the market with that proposition. So you may have like a few people, you may have like some sort of like capability in-house. So what happens, rather than like this internal team or the function leading the P&L and sponsoring that acquisition or like the target, it's the other way around. So you make your existing team, which was smaller in size, and maybe didn't have the vision, but there was that identified gap. You roll that in the new, like the acquired entity. So that's another way to, bring value.
Yeah, and one interesting point which you both mentioned, and that brings to my next question as well, is, from a people and a culture perspective, rightly said, you mentioned that different team members are, executing their roles, wherein the rest of the, organization team members who are working on with their respective day-to-day tasks, how do you think that affects, and essentially what should, the M&A strategy should be kept in mind when it comes to amalgamating both the businesses, from a people's and culture standpoint?
Yeah, this is my favorite question, because you ask my point of view, people and culture, they are the core reasons for the success and failure of a transaction. M&A, it's not just like an economic transaction on a paper, or like any partnership for that matter, right? It's at the end of the day, it is people. And how it plays the role is like, as we are even defining our M&A strategy and going back to the drawing board where Dharmendra said, like the fundamentals of M&A strategy, right? Why we are doing it. In that why itself, one of the criteria and the understanding is the cultural aspects that you would look for in that organization, in that target, right? Because to drive value, it is important that the people are motivated, they believe in the vision that they are joining, right? And culturally, it doesn't become a burden for you to execute and integrate on that team, right? So it is, people and culture is like one fundamental aspect of when you're even defining your M&A strategy and the screening criteria for your M&A strategy. And for example, like, in a digital company, in a born digital organization, like, startup or like smaller organization, it's all the more important because, they are more likely, more than not, like the smaller organizations, born digital organization, they are on this like hyper growth path, right? So in that growth path, if you bring in an organization, an established organization, which hasn't been growing that fast, it could be dilutive of that mindset, right? And I'm not saying, there's anything wrong. What might not happen is like you are putting the puzzle pieces together, which don't go together, right? So the synergies cannot be achieved in that aspect. Similarly, in a larger organization, if it's like, let's say, complex, like a traditional organization, they may have a very rigid reporting structure, hierarchy, decision-making practices, which will not, work if they acquire like a digital company or a smaller company, which is more agile, which is more like flatter in the org structure, even in terms of the processes if they are not mature. So things like that, they won't become a part of the M&A strategy screening criteria. The second thing is, as you go through the process, this is one thing when I talked about getting to know each other, this is one of those things. Like, as you go through the process, you kind of get a sense of like, can we retain those people, right? Would it be a right cultural fit? Or is it just too much of a work and then we can, these two pieces don't fit together. So it is the building block of, M&A strategy.
Yeah.
Right. And love to know, Dharmendra, your thoughts on, the same aspect of people and culture. And because the M&A process is a long process too, sometimes it takes a year to,
Yeah.
and what Kirti brought in, that the perspective of when if it's a smaller company, there's no plug in and plug out method. So,
Right.
there is, it has to be modified. There's no traditional way to go around it. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on this thing?
Yeah. So if you look at, any M&A strategy, when we are making for M&A, even corporate strategy or M&A team, I think they know, they have so much experience now and they have seen so many deals in the past, people and the culture are part of everything now, because any M&A, for me, at least I have seen that it starts with people, ends with people, because they are one who are going to drive it, right? Culture and all. I have seen the, some of the deals where I worked, the day deal was announced, we know who are the key people who are going to work with me while doing integration. Also, who are the different stream leaders who are going to work with us for, next 1 year. And I think companies are really, planning in a much better way than earlier time. Then they are trying to engage more people who are, who are coming from the acquired company to make sure that, they don't make mistakes, because these are the people who are going to work. Suppose I acquire a company and I'm not involving the acquired company folks, then I cannot do myself. They have the expertise, right? If I don't involve them, and I have seen that time also when some of the deals where we were, not inviting those guys to come in early calls. And because at the initial, any deal you name, there is a push-pull from both sides. The buyer don't want to involve the acquirer key team members at a very early stage. But now everybody know that better to get them involved early. Why? Because they know if people are not involved, the entire process from day one or, anything you want to do, you have to start from the people. And I think this is the, the thumb rule now, that if you involve early, your chances of success is much higher than, not, involving people, right? Some of the deals I have seen that during the DD phase, still we have not signed the deal. Integration team, at least high level team, is ready, right? And that process also of identifying the guy who is going to integrate, he should be from the business. He should know why the deal had been done. He should not be the guy who's coming asking, he don't know what is the deal objective. So looking at all this, the people are everything. They are one who are going to work, right? If you are looking to integrate to company, and as Kirti, you said about your example, I can give you a very complex example where people are, working in factories, right? Sometimes they don't know that their company have got acquired. They don't know what will happen because they are just worried. So how to, how to communicate to them, how to engage them early, right? So engagement is engaging people in early is not only the, key team members, but also focus is across all the levels, at least one communication. So that's what we have seen the deals which were really planned well. There was a team ready. There was good involvement of from the buy side guy. I think it was very, very I can say the deal were successful at least up to 1 year. Everybody was so engaged. There was the IMO team monitoring the progress of the deal. There is a executive committee who is looking at overseeing the integration is happening, and then all these people I'm talking about who are all part of this team, they are coming from buy side and sell side, and that is the beauty of integration. Involve early, make sure that you understand culture. There are so many culture workshops we did, and I realized that now I see the value of the culture integration, having workshop, developing the methodology which you are going to use, giving to country heads who are, integrating those company within their countries. So I think it required lots of planning, and people are integral part of it. So for me, to start from people, ends with people. Right?
Yeah.
If you want to see success of the deal, and culture is in between, because of course, all two individuals are different, right? So adapting to culture, that also depends on individual. But then how you approach, what your philosophy of, culture, right? How we engage. So there are so many things and there are so many components. And as a good integration manager, if you look at, we have to make sure that everyone is working together, aligning. There's no, culture issue at all, right? So these are
I
part
think,
of the parts.
yeah, I think two key takeaways, from hearing both your thoughts is, giving, the key stakeholders that visibility and transparency, I think at each and every stage or different departments is what is going to be, a key driver in the aspect of making sure that the M&A process is very smooth and, culturally adaptable for each and every folk of the organization. Which brings me to, to another point.
Yes, absolutely. Communication, like that's the key.
Correct.
Every step of the way, across the organizations, it's the key.
Yeah.
Right. And with that perspective, in today's times, and this being one of the most key areas wherein we see that a lot of companies get handicapped when there is less technology involved. So, I just want to understand how technology, how like a SaaS or, leveraging in any other softwares in the industry can help aid the success of a deal. How do you think? What kind of involvement I would say with respect to organization seeking the help of any virtual or software businesses that can streamline the success of a deal?
Yeah, this is one of those questions where I'd say I'm old school in this still, in that experience. But of course, Personally, if you ask me, in my experience, I haven't used a lot of like the end-to-end M&A platforms, but I know like there are really good ones out there. Like Midaxo is one that can help through across the pipeline. Then there is one from like deal team or something like that. There is that. Then there is CB Insights from a research standpoint is really good. So definitely like technology and the platforms have evolved. One thing that I am a big user of and I recommend is the market intelligence platforms. Because the big portion of M&A strategy, it's not, yes, it is execution, but there is a lot of thought and the research that goes behind it, especially from a strategy standpoint. And given our topic is M&A strategy, I would say, intelligence platforms like PitchBook, CapIQ, FactSet, CB Insights, like all these platforms inform your M&A strategy, right? Like they keep you up to date. I use them like extensively. And then also during the process of due diligence, as I was saying, like you got to think of, okay, if not this, then what's out there? Getting the comparables, getting like precedent transactions, what has happened in the market in this regard, right? So throughout the process, keeping yourself informed and intelligent so that your decisions that you take are intelligent. These are the platforms that I would totally vouch for and I personally extensively use.
Yeah, and to deep dive into that, and this is a question to you as well, Dharmendra, something this is very close to your heart as well. When it comes to collaboration and project management, where you are deep, you're deep into the process now, and all of us are working virtually, so you want to keep at pace with the respective departments, what is happening. You want to keep your task management also in place. Do you think, technology or leveraging platforms is also helpful in that entire process, or rather than going through the cumbersome way of exchanging mails or keeping something locally?
So I can give you very straightforward reply to this. So I did deal without any technology, and I use technology to do deals, and I realize now technology is helping you to expedite things, making right decisions. And as Kirti was saying that she used several marketing intelligence tool. Earlier, we have Excel sheet. I have done that also, putting the, Google, just go to Google, find which company we acquired, then go and find, what is the deal size, who are the key people, keeping their detail in Excel sheet. From that time to, having these tools, which will give you all, go to Facebook, give all the information, email ID, everything you can get it. So that is sorted now. So that is one part of, pre-deal page where you want to, get some information, what is in the market. Go to the next step when you are going M&A, discussion part, doing the DD phase. The virtual data room came in line, right? So we use extensive virtual data room in the past, and the goal was just conclude the deal. Just once deal is done, then your data room access is revoked. There is no further work. The real problem happened when because I was working as a post-merger integration guy, leading post-merger integration from ground up, building the process, setting up the process, talking to people, understanding how they have done deals, what are the best practices, how they use the best practices. So as soon as I went to the M&A team, I realized, people have everything, but they are lying somewhere, right? So how to make sure that the ownership is really retained with the right set of people, and that's what technology can help you. So once deal is done, virtual data room is set up by your seller. Once he sold the company, then you don't bother about his data, right? You take the data. But now, once you have the data, how you are going to use for integration further, that is your buyer responsibility. And that was the biggest gap I saw, that there is no technology in integration. So primarily up to BDR, there are so many ways to do it. And you can also manage a smaller deal without virtual data room. Also, you can share documents by email. There is no harm. But if deal is complex, company wanted to have a secure place, so BDR worked. But when we really went to integration, and which are one of the critical for any deal you name, signing and closing deal. Up to that, I think celebration, parties,
Easy
news. This looks very good, but that is not the deal. Real battle starts when you are thinking about how to integrate, and that's how all this M&A strategy we spoke about. Integration is the key, right? If you have not built integration strategy, then I think you should not really get money to buy any company if you don't have integration plan ready, right? That should be the mandate from the CEO. Don't buy company if you don't have integration plan ready with people. It's not just plan and there is no people. Once you are ready, and I've seen the benefit myself, we set up the process, we define who are going to lead within the company, right? Otherwise, everybody have come with 200,000 lines of, action item in Excel sheet, and they start sending you, and they say, these are the critical for me. And then we have to say, hey, this is not critical for you. There are something which is critical for business, and that's what we have to focus at the first 100 days, and we have to complete it. So technology help you to collaborate there, because what we can do is, if you are using technology platform, you really don't have, first you have to get rid of all Excel sheet, right? You put everything together in platform, assign your team quickly, assign their activity, they get automated mail. So communication become easier. Information are all together in single platform. So I've seen people are using 10 different, platform to store information. They are doing right thing, but the problem is, if I have to go and look at all this information together, there is no other way. I cannot see that, right? And this all were practical difficulty, I faced while I was doing M&A and integration. And that's how I see integration and more value add, and technology use in integration is much higher than VDR and other things. So that's how I think technology is, but of course, I can tell you that technology is just enabling you to make your job do, better. It's not a tool that, if you use your integration will, you can say that you have successfully integrated. No, it is only making your job easy. It is making sure that if you define 100 days task within the tool will make sure that you complete. If you are not doing, at least people are notified, right? Otherwise, in M&A team, I think Kirti can tell more. We have changed so many people to, get activity done. So when we do the deal, we are not really doing the integration work, but we are changing people that, have you done this? Have you completed? Do you have any dependency? And this all we are solving through technology platform. So technology is again enabler, but yeah, it has a value add, because if you use in a, very systematic way, I'm sure that your success rate will be much higher. And I have used, and I have seen the value. So any tool is like that. Anything, technology is not going to change anything, but it will bring discipline. Your approach gets changed. You get notified, that somebody is watching you. I don't have to go and, change people. I can go to my dashboard and see who is doing what, where we are today, where I can support. Because most of the time, what I have seen, we don't know where to help team, right? Because they are in their specific country, they are in their zone, and they are doing something great, but I don't know. Or they might be looking for some support and help. We don't know how to help them. So technology can help you to see and notify you that somebody is looking for help in this country. And due to that, you will be able to help them. So technology is enabler. And I think I always say people that use technology to, there's no harm in using technology. Technology is going to help you to do your job better.
Absolutely. And with where we are seeing AI coming in, they may even do it. So
I was coming to that. Yeah. And like great takeaways from both what you mentioned, that, from a prospecting aspect, the leveraging tools that are there, they're looking at, the entire horizon, I would say, of companies which are ready to, from a revenue standpoint. And similarly, Dharmendra, what you mentioned in the process, when you deep dive into the M&A process, how technology can aid and make the entire process very streamlined and disciplined. And yes, with the boom of AI and what's happening in the tech environment today, who knows what's going to be there in the next 2 to 3 years. But yes, that's a topic for another day. Would love to scratch both of your thoughts on that. But thank you today for your time, and glad we were able to cover up, a lot of topics, right from setting up foundation for an M&A strategy to, execution, and gathering both your thoughts from a corporate development side and Dharmendra being in that essence of executing the entire deal management. So thank you, and I think our listeners uh, would have gained a lot of knowledge. Just want to, if anybody has any questions, please do shout out to us, on our mail ID at MergerWare Insights. And meanwhile, if anyone wants to, summarize or bring in a food for thought today before we shut down the webinar for today.
I think, just to summarize, because the topic was very wide, and 1 hour is also not enough. I know we are on time, but the M&A strategy alignment and the people who work, they know how difficult job this is. But yeah, this is challenging. This you can enjoy. You can also, the good part is nobody have built a strategy with everything works. So always there is a way to come back, refine, it's a very agile way of doing your work, right? So we can always look it as a, as a success tool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you so much. And I just say this is, we live in an environment in the world where things just move so fast. So the whole idea is how to stay ahead of the competition, how to competitive, and then also like co-optation, right? Like where it's better to partner versus just start building from scratch, right? And then to be efficient throughout the process in that M&A cycle, it's all about people. So work with people, identify the right people, and have people responsible for the various stages.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for, leaving in some food for thought for our listeners. And thank you for your time today, Kirti. Loved meeting you, loved understanding your thoughts. Thank you, Dharmendra, for your time.